In the chaos of World War II, when tanks thundered across Europe and bombers darkened the skies, there existed a secret unit unlike any other. They were not hardened soldiers or battle-hardened commanders, they were artists, sound engineers, architects, and designers. Their weapons weren't rifles or grenades, but paintbrushes, air compressors, and phonograph records. This was the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, a top-secret U.S. Army unit known later as the Ghost Army, a band of illusionists sent to deceive Hitler's forces on the European front. Formed in 1944, the Ghost Army consisted of just over 1,100 men, but their impact was enormous. Their mission was simple in words but dangerous in execution: to trick the German army into thinking there were tens of thousands of Allied troops where there were none. Their operations began shortly after the D-Day invasion. As Allied troops advanced through France toward Germany, the front lines constantly shifted. The Ghost Army's job was to create fake units to mislead the enemy about Allied strength and troop movements. They did it through three main forms of deception: visual, sonic, and radio. Visual deception involved inflatable tanks and vehicles, life-sized replicas made of rubberized canvas. Under the cover of night, Ghost Army soldiers would drive into empty fields and inflate hundreds of fake Sherman tanks, trucks, and artillery guns. By sunrise, from the sky or a distance, these dummy units looked entirely real. The illusion was so convincing that German reconnaissance planes often reported large Allied buildups, when in reality, not a single real tank was there. Sonic deception used carefully crafted sound effects. Engineers recorded the noises of real armored divisions, engines rumbling, metal clanking, soldiers shouting, then played them back using massive speakers that could project sound for miles. They even layered the audio to simulate troop movement, fooling the enemy into thinking columns of tanks were advancing. Radio deception completed the illusion. Skilled operators mimicked real Allied radio traffic, imitating the tone, rhythm, and style of different divisions. To the Germans intercepting those transmissions, it appeared as though entire battalions were preparing for attack, all while the real forces slipped away elsewhere. One of the Ghost Army's most daring missions came in March 1945, near the Rhine River. The Allies were preparing a massive crossing, but the Germans expected it. To divert them, the Ghost Army staged a full-scale deception operation near the town of Wesel. In just a few hours, they transformed empty farmland into a bustling army base. They set up inflatable tanks and trucks, blasted recorded engine sounds through the night, and even drove jeeps in looping patterns to create tire tracks. Some soldiers posed as generals, visiting local cafes and spreading fake gossip to any spies who might be listening. The deception worked. The Germans shifted their defenses toward the Phantom Army, allowing the real U.S. Ninth Army to cross the Rhine with far fewer casualties. The operation saved thousands of lives and accelerated the Allied advance into Germany. What made the Ghost Army extraordinary was not just their success, but their spirit. Many members had been students at art schools before the war. Among them were men who would later become famous artists and designers, including Bill Blass, the future fashion icon, and Ellsworth Kelly, who would go on to shape modern art. They sketched, painted, and created even in the middle of war. Between missions, they produced hundreds of artworks, portraits, landscapes, and cartoons, capturing not just the destruction of war, but the surreal beauty of their strange mission. The Ghost Army carried out more than 20 deception missions across Europe, from Normandy to the Siegfried Line. They faced real danger, often setting up decoys just miles from German lines, sometimes under enemy fire. Yet for decades after the war, their work remained classified. The men returned home in silence, forbidden to tell their families what they had done. It wasn't until the 1990s that their story was finally declassified, revealing one of the most creative and daring operations of the entire war. When the truth came out, historians were stunned. Military strategists acknowledged that the Ghost Army's illusions may have saved tens of thousands of Allied soldiers. Their deception allowed real armies to move freely, capture key positions, and avoid deadly traps. Today, the Ghost Army stands as a testament to the power of creativity in the darkest of times. Their success wasn't built on violence, but on imagination, proof that art can save lives as surely as any weapon. In 2022, the United States finally recognized their heroism. Members of the unit were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, one of the nation's highest honors. They were, as one general later said, an army of artists who fought a war with imagination. Hidden for decades, their story now shines. A reminder that sometimes, the greatest victories are the ones no one ever knew happened.